Hey everyone, welcome to the Be Bold, Make Waves podcast, a show bringing you inspiring stories of women who are growing and scaling their business. I'm your host, Laura Comark, a website and tech integration specialist who works with online business owners who love their work and not their website. Join me as we have incredible conversations about business, mindset, productivity, and of course, the website and tech behind the business. Let's go ahead and dive in to this week's episode. Hello and welcome to this week's show. For those of you who don't already know me, I'm Laura Comark, a website and tech integration specialist for women who love their work, but not their website. I am so excited to introduce you to my guest today, Jill Staats. Jill is the founder and CEO of Fledgling Media, a family of brands dedicated to bringing life skills education to people at every age and stage. Currently, she supports ambitious women who are passionate about both work and parenting by providing expert-level virtual assistant hiring, training, and management. As a former human resource manager in Silicon Valley, Jill supported employees during their biggest life changes. Witnessing those changes inspired her to develop a business that provides not only emotional and mental support, but physical resources to make times of transition seamless, fulfilling, and stress-free. Today, she's committed to infusing her passion for education for people of all walks of life with real-life administration skills that help individuals prioritize their bucket list and leave a lasting legacy. Jill, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Can you tell our listeners just a little bit more about how you got to where you are today?
Of course. Thank you so much, Laura, for having me. I've really been looking forward to this conversation. As you mentioned, my career has blossomed out of human resources. So I spent about 15 years as a benefits manager. So the person who you go to when you need help with your health insurance plan, your retirement plan, if you are going on disability leave or maternity leave, I was the person that you came to talk to. And it became apparent to me as I'm working with people at all income levels, at all levels of the company, from your C-suite to your admin staff. It didn't matter how much money you were making. It didn't matter how well educated you were. All of those transitions were often a shock to people, and most people didn't know how to work through them. And so there was this gap that I recognized as a need for more life skills education, the real nuts and bolts of what it is to administer your life, how to save for retirement, how to get first apartments, first homes, how to go through the adoption process, fertility journeys, parenthood journeys, all the way through retirement. And so my goal is to create a business that makes those skills available at every age and stage, as I said, for every transition, have point-in-time education resources that are entertaining, memorable, and engaging.
Oh, I love that so much. So when did you start your business? When did you transition from corporate to entrepreneurship?
So I knew that I had always wanted to start my business probably within a few years coming out of college, but I actually made the leap in 2019. I quit my corporate job with the plan of starting my business in March of 2020. That did not pan out with a pandemic.
That did not pandemic out?
Exactly. So I did ultimately found it anyway towards the end of 2020, and I made the best of it. I left my job, my corporate job, when my first child was born, and I wanted the flexibility that came with being an entrepreneur. But between the pandemic and my second child being born, I was really thrown for a loop on how to manage all of it. I had also moved away from my family. I was away from everybody. And so I had a lot of change going on. So that initial founding did not go as I had thought it would. It was not as easy as I had hoped. It is completely worthwhile. I'm glad I did it, but it was
I feel like that is a very similar, it's a different story, but I feel like almost every entrepreneur would say, I thought it was going to be a lot easier and it was a lot bumpier than I had anticipated. I know that was how I felt.
Yeah,
I still feel about it.
Exactly. It's a hard road. So again, absolutely worthwhile. And you just got to keep your eye on the prize as to why you're doing it and hang in there.
I love that. So, can we talk a little bit about your business, a little more about your business today, and how are you helping clients? Who are your perfect fit clients? And let's talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So I have a grand plan in mind to ultimately help everybody, as I said, at every age and stage. That's a different target demographic for each of those. So the one that I started with right now is parents, because that's where I am. That's what's around me. That's who my network is made up of. And so my goal right now is to help women who are trying to work and parent and balance the two. So largely families that are probably looking at two incomes, very busy, and I'm supporting those families with fractional personal assistance. So personal assistance should not be reserved for celebrities. You are the celebrity in your own life. Let's help you out. So people who don't need a full-time personal assistant, we provide essentially a bucket of hours and a dedicated personal assistant so that you can have support for your family and your work if you need. So we support high level right now. Some of the women that we have are very senior executives at major corporations. Some are running their own entrepreneurial endeavors, but they're all people who have a couple of kids. They all have a partner, homes, people who have a lot on their plate. And my goal is to help them achieve their bucket list by getting off the things that can be outsourced.
Oh, I love that. I was just talking with my business coach yesterday because it's summer at the time of this recording, and I had taken some time off for like work travel, for family travel. And I'm just trying to like get back into all the things, my business. And some of my business stuff has taken kind of a back burner for the last few days as I'm reopening my computer for the first time in 2 weeks, because there's some other life things happening. We have some insurance stuff that needs to be taken care of. My husband, I do a lot of stuff for my husband's business because he's an entrepreneur as well. And we have some business licenses that need to be renewed. We have a harbor card that needs to be renewed. We have a car lease that's coming up it's ending next month. And it's like, what are we going to do? And just all these other like life things that need to be taken care of before I can dive strongly back into my business after taking some time off. And my coach and I were talking about, she's like, life is also a full-time job, and having, the household management in addition to running your own business, having the children, it's summer.
Yeah.
Just a little different.
Yeah, exactly. And trying to manage all of that becomes, so you've got your real job, you've got your relationship, you've got your children, and you've got this life. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of hours to manage and to balance. And so my goal is to say, where can we help you? What can we do for you? Also, let's look in advance. So not just what you feel is urgent today because it's happening right now, but let's look 3 months out. What birthdays are coming up? What anniversaries, holidays are actually around the corner? What can we do now to make the rest of your year a little less stressful, a little more enjoyable? What are the things that you really want to get done? And so we can help plan all of that. I like to say that we are, a buddy system for your bucket list.
I love that. Oh, I need a personal assistant for my life. I have very high on my list. I want a personal chef. There's
same.
At some point I will get that's on the vision board. Yes. Because the whole cooking thing, I saw a meme the other day that was like, my least favorite part of adulting is having to figure out for the rest of like what's to be made for dinner every day for the rest of life.
Yes. Exactly. No, we see that with our clients, that meal planning and grocery shopping is a top concern. It is daily.
Well, it's very time consuming.
Yes.
I mean, I went, we had just gotten back from vacation, and the kids and I went, we had 3 grocery stops to just try to restock all our essentials for the house. And I don't even cook like meal plan during the week because I do box delivery. We do Home Chef. And so I just go in ahead of time and pick out the meals, and then that arrives on Monday, which has been a huge time saver for me. But I still have to go get a lot of the staples, the basics that we need for the household.
Yep. You probably have to make time to actually make it. Is today the day where you've got the hour to sit down or a half hour, or is today the day where you need 2 minutes? What can I microwave?
Yep.
But there's a lot that goes into just eating.
Yep.
And that's a necessary function. So let alone all the other stuff, the insurance, travel planning, kids' activities. There's a lot that goes into modern parenthood, modern families.
Absolutely. I was just thinking the other day, because again, we were out of town and then now we're back and I have like automatic soap dispensers in all the bathrooms. I'm like, do I need to refill all the soaps? When was the last time? Oh, we're out of toilet paper. Let's go down into the garage and like, what else needs to be restocked? Oh, we're out of Kleenex in this one bathroom. Let's go restock Kleenex. Like just those little household things. I'm like, should I be creating a checklist for this so that I don't have to have it sitting in my brain and then I can just go once a week through it and be like, check, check, check. So
I'm a big believer in getting what you can out of your head so that you can save that space for important things.
yeah.
I think one of the things that we forget about is that decision fatigue is real and it happens all day, every day. If you are spending time wondering what is in my pantry, what is in the closet, oh, I need a new appliance, I've got to research all 50 of them on Amazon, you're just going to wind up in a lot of those cases, just pick one. I don't care.
Yeah.
And that can start happening with important decisions also. Something like kids' activities or date night planning. If you can outsource that the front end of all of those tasks, that leaves your brain free to make the important decision. I know toilet paper may not seem that important. I know, but it's weighing on your mind.
Yeah.
And then things, if you can make the best decision with the information that you have, you're going to be a lot happier in the long run.
I agree so much. So what are some of the things, I know you've touched on a few, but I would love to hear like some of the things that your personal assistants are helping clients with.
It's a huge list and it's interesting to see that everybody is dealing with the same thing and everybody's dealing with different things. So on the same thing, there are a lot of parties that need planning. And it has been interesting to see that that's actually a burden for a lot of people, trying to get-togethers together, how to feed everybody, how to get them all in the same place on the same date. That can be very tricky. As I said, the meal planning, travel planning can be very tricky. But on the day-to-day, there are interesting tidbits or interesting to-dos about, I have this space in my house and I need this particular size piece of furniture and it needs to be white because it needs to match the rest of my house, but it needs to be this size and it needs to do this function. And I've been looking for it for a year and a half. Something like that, very specific. I'm renovating my house. We are living out of the living room. We're doing dishes in the bathtub. Can you help me with X, Y, and Z? So it's this balance of things that we recognize as the to-dos of everyday life, like the parties, as well as the specific personalized things that every family are going to find a little bit different based on kids' interests, families, jobs, schedules. They're all a little bit different. And so how and when things get done are all a little bit different, which is why we assign the dedicated personal assistant so that they get to know you, they get to know your family, your schedule, how you like to communicate. And our goal is to set up that successful relationship so that we can really support your family.
Oh, I love that. I love the travel planning. I don't personally entertain a lot because it's not my wheelhouse and not something I enjoy. But the travel planning, we do a lot of traveling and that it takes up so much time and energy to try to figure all that stuff out. Yeah. But then and like the plan, like talking about like the kids' birthday parties. I mean, that's literally the reason I both my kids are 5 and 7. And I told my husband, I was like, okay, first birthday party, we're doing a party. And, it's like for the adults, we got a taco truck that came. My husband wanted to barbecue. I'm like, no, you're not barbecuing because then you'll be up on the roof deck, which is where our barbecue is because we live at the beach in Southern California where there are no yards. I'm like, you'll be up on the roof deck and I will have to be entertaining and introvert me. Like, I don't really want to do that. You're the extrovert. You go entertain everyone. They're mostly people, because you've lived here for so long. And I told him, I said, no, we're just going to get a taco truck. So I don't have to do anything food related aside from making a little cake for my child and picking up something.
Perfect.
But we did the first birthday party, and ever since then, I'm like, we'll just take the kids to the zoo. We'll just take the kids to the zoo. So every year we go to the zoo, and I'm just waiting because they're like, well, when are we going to start doing parties? I'm like, no, we're going to the zoo. We're just going to keep going to the zoo as long as I can.
That's
I
your
don't want to plan a party.
Yeah, your traditional birthday party. No, it's a huge undertaking for a lot of people. If you don't enjoy it, it's also a big point that can become a keeping up with the Joneses in a lot of areas. So-and-so has the bounce house and the 3-tier cake and the balloon arch. And you're like, I just want to serve pizza. So there can be this disconnect between expectations and your reality and your interests. Maybe you can afford that, but you're just not that interested in it. It brings a lot of stress on families. And that was one of the surprises that I learned once we started seeing what the to-do lists look like for different families.
Oh, that's fascinating. So are all your assistants, is it all done virtually, or do you have people who are doing in person? Can we talk a little bit about what this sort of looks like?
It's all done virtually. So we have assistants all over the country. So it depends, they're all US based, they're all college educated. So we can line up somebody that matches you. I try to kind of assess personalities. We've done personality training too. So our assistants are trained on what your personality might be like when you're under stress, so that we are trying to alleviate your stress. So that's what they're working on. But we match you up, and then you meet either weekly or bi-weekly. And for about a half hour, that can be a Zoom call or just a phone call, and go through a task list. We keep it pretty simple. So it's just going through a Google Doc that you share, your assistant and yourself. And you can hammer them out on the call. The assistant works through them during the week. They can shoot you a quick text. If you think of something that you need to add, you can text them. And it just becomes that relationship. Oh, hey, can you add this to the list? Oh, that got done. Great. Or, if the assistant needs some extra information from you. Keeping it US based kind of puts a cap on the hours. The time zone issue can be a problem sometimes. And so we can address that. We work around your schedule. And as I said, we hope to learn your family and how we best support you.
So how did you, when you first started this, how were you finding assistance to work with the company?
I put out a job rec. So I did the hire through a job posting on Indeed.com. And so I was looking for personal assistants or people who had experience as executive assistants, people who were comfortable hiring or handling a lot of high-level detailed tasks. And I've been very lucky to find personal assistants that have a lot of actual personal experience. My grand plan would be, imagine if this were something that you could get through your company. Imagine if personal assistance was its own industry, not just something that is for people who are incredibly wealthy, which I think is how we typically think of them. But my bigger goal is to look at what we tell people about what family life is, how we prepare people for family life, because in my opinion, we don't. And it is a shock when it happens, or at least it was for me.
Me as well.
To your point earlier about life administration is its own job. Each child comes with that also. You're managing doctor's appointments, you're managing school enrollments, activities, all of this different stuff. The expectation has too long fallen on women, on mothers, that this is your job. And we really haven't seen that change, I don't think, in the last 50 or 60 years. And certainly there was a lot of chatter during the pandemic about, moms are so overwhelmed. It's not new. It's not a new problem. It was just highlighted for a couple of years. And I'm worried that we will go back to a case where that goes back to normal. So I want to create a new normal for what it means to be a family, who shoulders what burdens. I mean, we'll be real. Paperwork is a burden. Appointments are a burden. What can we do to ease that burden for parents? And so that's my larger goal with this company.
Oh, I love that so much. And I think It's so true. Everything you said is so true. I mean, I know both my husband and I have our own businesses. And so it's always felt a little bit like a struggle to me. We're like, he works a long hours because his boss, him,
Mhm.
has him working so much. And so it's not, we don't have this traditional like, it's Friday at 5 and we clock out for the
Yes.
weekend. That's never been our reality. I mean, it was a little bit for when we were dating and very first married before when I still was corporate. I mean, I was able to check out at the end of the night and it wasn't as big of a deal. But once we had the kids, I was laid off when I was pregnant with my first child. And so all of a sudden I went from having, the super secure job with the 401k and the health insurance and all that to being unemployed and 5 months pregnant. And so it was a very interesting transition of having that kind of identity change.
Yes.
And then also like being a new mom and trying to figure that out, which also then sent my husband into kind of work overload of like, my wife just lost her job. Now I need to go work and like build this even bigger business so that I can support this family that we have. And so it was all these different dynamics. And I definitely was the one that was home with the baby, just kind of trying to figure it out and then managing the house and just starting my business and all the things. So it's a very interesting. And I mean, I wasn't prepared for any of that.
It's a conundrum.
I was planning on working corporate while I had kids.
That's not easy.
No, and I'm sure it wouldn't have been. I never got a chance to try that one out. But I mean, it's definitely been a challenge. I do not think that I was prepared for what motherhood was how that was gonna change everything.
I agree. I felt the same. It was a shock. The change in identity is amazing. I think also the change from moving from a corporate to an entrepreneur is an identity change. And with a lot of the major transitions in life, it's an identity change.
Mhm.
For a young, if you're graduating from college, you're becoming a young adult, that's a big one. Getting into a relationship, you've gone from single to partnered, that's a big one. Who am I as a partner now? What happened to my single self? Certainly with parenthood. And then again, in retirement, you've given up your job, which in a lot of cases is your identity. Your family has gone on and moved on to their own families. So throughout life, we see these identity changes. And I think there's more that we could do to prepare people for not necessarily in how they define their identities as they go through life, but certainly with the hard skills that come along with each change and more support for each one.
Yeah, I love that. I think there is so much that is a surprise that we're not well prepared for in life that I know, especially like you were saying with motherhood and some of the changes there and leaving corporate, like there were things I was not prepared for that I'm still figuring out as, all these years later. So
I can't prepare everyone for everything, but there's more that we could do for each phase.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you have that mission to help support more women in business and in life. I love that so much.
I love it. This is my life's work, is how can I help educate? I'm focusing on the women right now, but my goal is how can we help everybody essentially speed up the learning curves that come with each one. We really don't have that much time on this planet. And so you can't spend 10 years transitioning into young adulthood. You can't spend 5 or 10 years trying to figure out how to become a parent. There's just not the time. And so how can we better accomplish what we want for ourselves and for our families and for our livelihoods? How can we do that better, faster, and more fulfilling, in a way that's more fulfilling?
Oh, I love that so much. So I want to talk a little bit about when you first kind of went out and were starting this, and what were some of the mindset hurdles, maybe some of the fears and doubts that you had to overcome to take this business off and get it going?
The biggest one for me has been that I am the face of my brand. I always thought, no, we're going to be a brand, the logo is going to be the brand and that kind of thing. And so getting comfortable representing the company is one thing. Getting comfortable speaking in front of other people is another. I like to talk, so this kind of thing is great. I love to interact and converse with other people and exchange ideas. But that mindset of, am I saying the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? I think I knew that I could build a business. I was comfortable in that I had a product, that I have a product that I think can sell. There are hard days on how you put it together, but just learning to be the face of the company is a challenge for me.
I can relate to that so much. I had a very hard time getting visible. Just a few years ago, I was really still struggling with it. And it was actually a mindset coach that I worked with that helped me get over this hurdle of being visible. And I mean, I had been building an email list and I would not email them. I would freeze up. I could not email them. And doing the work with her, the mindset work on got me past that. But I mean, it was really scary for a while.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm not there yet. So you're telling me it's possible. So that's good.
It got easier. It's still, I mean, don't get me wrong. I still have my fears and doubts and my other, the little voices never go away.
So I think that is what I learned, is that they never go away. So we're just going to move past it. Elizabeth Gilbert talks in her book, Big Magic, a lot about this, that fear is always there and just learn to give it a back seat. And I think that is a really good analogy. You just learn to work through it and push past it. And I think now I am more effective at recognizing that it's not a block in my brain. And if it is, it's like a physical block. I see you. I see that's a problem, but I'm going to work around it.
Mm-hmm. That's so good. Yeah, I remember that whole fear analogy that she did. That was a good book. I should bring that one out again because it's been a number of years since I read that.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So good. I still have it on the bookshelf.
Same.
What would you say that you're doing that's being bold in the industry? What are you doing that's different? Are other people doing fractional personal assistants?
I have seen some services that are similar. I have not seen a dedicated one-on-one fractional personal assistant. So that in itself might be bold. I'm not talking about creating a business that serves just one or two people or a small client base. I'm not talking about a business that just serves people who can afford it. I want to create a business that helps families, every family, because the truth is, we're talking about the administrative levels that come with being yourself, with your business, with a couple of kids. That is not particular to wealthy families. That is at all income levels. That's for people all across the country. It doesn't matter where you live. Everybody's going to have this certain level of requirement of how to succeed, how to thrive and manage their families. I want this to be a resource that's available to everybody. So trying to build something that could be big feels bold. It's hard, but I think it can be done. There are parts of that come with, we're sort of talking about what it means to be a modern parent, what it means to be a modern working mom. Some of that can be very bold. And when you start talking about changing things, you're talking about changing maybe the common rhetoric around what parenthood is. There's a lot of landmines in that conversation. So it feels bold to even try. But it has to be done, I think, to better all families.
Oh, I love that. So how can someone who maybe doesn't have a lot of discretionary income, how could they benefit from this? How can this help them?
I think if you can be freed up to stay in your zone of genius, that you can recognize the benefits of that free time. I do not mean to imply that it is a service that is available to everybody to start with. I have to start at a certain income level in order to build a product that is big enough that is available to everybody. I have to increase that demand and the supply in order to bring that price down, right? Basic economics.
Yep.
But that is my hope. That's what I'm trying to do. But there are things that we can encourage other companies to do that would help the everyday family. So if you think about something as simple as, I need a new daycare for my kid. I have to call around, find out who has availability for my kid, what their hours are, whether or not they have snack time, lunchtime, what their nap requirements are, what other special things do they have? Are they a nut-free facility? What are they doing? How much does it cost? Do I get a sibling discount? What if all of that was just posted on their website? What if that was a standard form that we demanded that a company provide so that we just saved hours upon hours for every family who has to do that search? So while I might not be able to help a lower income family right now, my goal is to help you eventually, because there's a lot we can do to reduce the demand of administration that our families are currently undergoing.
I love that perspective on it. And I also think that's a really interesting point you brought up about the use of information on a website.
Yes.
I'm shocked as someone who builds websites. I mean, I have a lot of opinions on a lot of people's websites. We, my husband and I recently went to dinner with a vendor of his, and they were asking like, "Oh, Laura, what do you do for work?" I said, "Well, I have this boutique website agency and I kind of went into it." But then during our conversation at dinner, I said, there's some things you could do on your website that just standard things that everyone should be doing. And one of those is putting an FAQ on your contact page.
There you go.
Most likely when someone's about to contact you, they have questions. So take your FAQs, all those questions you get all the time, all the things that you just mentioned for any sort of daycare or childcare facility, and put all that in an FAQ on the contact page. And yes, right there. Because I know for me, anytime I have to call somewhere, I put it off.
Yep.
I had to find a new dentist and I knew where to go. I asked around my neighbors. I got the name of a place that has been on my to-do list for like 3 or 4 months. I've called them a few times. They're closed on Fridays at like 2. And I always think about it Friday at like 3 or 4 o'clock. I'm like, oh, I should call them. I'm like, they're not even open.
Exactly. No, I think you bring up an interesting point. Especially as a web designer, you must see this all the time. The modern website is a requirement for businesses, but most businesses in this country are small businesses. And 99% are small businesses. I know it's easy to think that we are all the Apples and the Disneys of the world. Most businesses are small. The hurdles to create a website are numerous, they're expensive, but they are truly the way that those businesses are going to get more business. And they are the way that by sharing the information on all of those businesses, you can actually help all of your customers. It goes both ways. It's not just that being your storefront nowadays. It's really helping out other folks.
Absolutely. I'm shocked. Like, we were also just on vacation in Hawaii and trying to find information on just some restaurants to go eat at and trying to figure out when are they open? I want to look at their menu to make sure they have something. My kids are picky eaters. What's on their kids menu?
I think it's important to figure out what you said, like the FAQs. What's the most common information? You want to know what they're serving. You want to know when they're open, and you want to know where they are. Easy peasy.
You'd be surprised. It's not so easy peasy.
Exactly.
I had a hard time finding a lot of that information.
No. Yeah, exactly. But it goes for businesses across the board. You don't see the information that you need, but I don't think it's a lack of desire to put it out there. I think it's a hard thing. So good job, Laura.
Thank you. I think also it's overwhelming. Like, what do I need to have on a website? Yes. People don't always know. And that's where they a lot of times will put too much information that's not the right information.
Agreed. I think that was certainly my learning curve with websites is I need a website. Okay, what goes on it? What does it need to look like? And then you go to a designer and he said, well, what do you want to put on it? Well, I don't know. You're the designer. You tell me, what do I need? And so it becomes this required dialogue to try and figure out, what are you trying to do? Who are you trying to attract? It's not an easy process, I don't think.
It's not. And that's exactly why I created the freebie that I currently have on my website, which is a website content planning workbook that goes through, here's all the information of what you should, as a service provider. This is not for the restaurant owner. This is for the online business owner, service provider, to go, and here's the information you need to have on your website. And here's spaces where you can go brainstorm and put it all down, so that then when you're ready to put it on the website, you have it all organized in a great little document.
That's awesome.
So I cannot believe how fast this time has gone by. I had so much fun with this conversation. I had a bunch more questions I was going to ask you, but we are running close to our time today. I do have one question that I ask everyone who comes on the show, and that is, what is one piece of advice you would give to someone in business that would help them be bolder, be louder, and make waves?
Hey, touched on it a little bit about developing a sense of urgency. And there's only so much time in the day. There's only so much time in our life. There's only so much time with our loved ones. You really need to key into your why when it comes to entrepreneurism, because getting a corporate job is going to be the easiest money that you make. So if you're moving into the entrepreneur space, you need to know why. You need to know how it fits into your grand plan. Do you have a grand plan? And develop that sense of urgency to get it done. If you're creating a business because you want the flexibility, because you think you can make more money, go get it. You can do it. Give it a try.
I love that so much. Jill, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Can you tell our listeners where they can go find out more about you, where they can get a personal assistant through you, a fractional personal individual, fractional one-on-one personal assistant, if they're like listening to this and they're like, I need help because my bandwidth is just, I'm out of it and I need some help.
So our website is Fledgling Media. It is a family of brands and the company will continue to grow. So we start the fractional personal assistant is under our Fledgling family brand. And if you follow Fledgling Media, the website, or our Instagram pages or LinkedIn and Facebook pages, all under Fledgling Media, you can follow the growth of the company as we expand and start to reach out into other ages and stages.
I love that. I will link all that up in the show notes. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. This was such a fun conversation.
I enjoyed this immensely. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. Be sure to check out the show notes at lauracomark.com/podcast. And if you're ready to turn your website into a marketing machine, get more sales, save time, and simplify the back end of your business, grab my free resource, Power Integrations for your website. Head on over to lauracomark.com/power. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to subscribe. And also, I'll just love you forever if you leave me a review. It helps get this podcast in front of other people that can help inspire. Thanks so much for listening. I'll see you next week. Bye now.